There is a car sitting in a garage tonight that hasn't moved in years. Dust covers the hood like a blanket nobody wants to pull off. The tires are flat. The battery is dead. And yet, if you offered the owner $10,000 for it right now, they would say no. Not because the car is worth that much. It isn't. They would say no because some part of them believes that selling it means losing something they can never get back. A version of themselves. A moment in time. A person they used to be and quietly still miss. Tonight we're going to explain the real reason people can't let go of their first car, and why this ache doesn't belong to one generation. It belongs to all of us. Picture a 17-year-old gripping a steering wheel for the first time, alone, no parent in the passenger seat. Their hands are sweating, their heart is pounding, and for one single moment, they feel something they've never felt before. Control over their own life. That feeling doesn't fade when the car gets old. It gets buried inside the metal itself. A baby boomer remembers a rusted pickup truck that smelled like gasoline and cut hay. A Gen X kid remembers a hand-me-down sedan with a broken air conditioner and a cassette deck that finally played their own music, not their parents'. A millennial remembers a scratched-up Civic bought with money saved from a fast food job, proof that hard work actually pays off. A Gen Z teenager remembers the first car their parents trusted them with, the first time they were allowed to disappear into the world on their own terms. Different decades, different dashboards, the exact same ache when it comes time to say goodbye. In 1988, researcher Russell Belk gave psychology a name for something people had always felt, but never explained. He called it the extended self. His research showed that the human mind doesn't stop at the edges of the body. It reaches outward and wraps itself around the things we live inside of. A house, a wedding ring, a first car. These things stop being objects to the brain and start becoming fragments of identity itself. Think about what that car actually witnessed. It witnessed a shaking hand turning the key for the first time. It witnessed someone driving too fast down an empty road at midnight, screaming along to a song, feeling invincible for 3 minutes. It witnessed a driver pulled over on the shoulder, sobbing after a breakup, using the front seat as the only private place left in the world. It witnessed a graduation night, a first job interview, a parent waving from a porch, growing smaller in the rearview mirror. None of these moments are written down anywhere. There is no photograph of most of them. But the brain stores them anyway, quietly stitched into the memory of that specific seat, that specific smell, that specific sound the engine made when it finally started on a cold morning. So when someone says, "Just sell it, it's only a car," they are not asking the owner to give up a machine. Without realizing it, they are asking someone to hand over a piece of their own past. And most people, if they're honest, are not ready to do that. In the early 1990s, economist Richard Thaler ran a quiet experiment that revealed something strange about ownership. He gave one group of people a plain coffee mug and asked what price they would sell it for. He asked a second group, who had never touched the mug, what they would pay to buy it. The owners asked for nearly double what the buyers offered. The mug hadn't changed. Only one invisible thing had changed. It now belonged to someone. Thaler called this the Endowment Effect, and it reveals something uncomfortable about the human mind. The moment we possess something, our brain quietly convinces us it's worth more than it actually is. Now imagine that effect, not applied to a coffee mug, but to 20 years of a life. Add a father who taught his son to change a tire on the side of a dark highway, both of them scared, both of them proud when it finally worked. Add a daughter who drove herself to the hospital the night her mother went into labor with her little brother. Add every quiet Sunday spent underneath the hood, hands stained with oil, patching up a car that owed nobody anything anymore, out of stubborn love instead of logic. A stranger sees a car that should have been scrapped years ago. The owner sees a life that refuses to be reduced to a price tag. This is why an offer that seems generous to a buyer can feel almost insulting to an owner. They aren't rejecting the number. They're rejecting the idea that a piece of their life could ever be measured in dollars. Researchers Michael Norton, Daniel Mochon, and Dan Ariely once discovered something unexpected about human effort. People who built their own IKEA furniture, clumsy screws and crooked shelves and all, rated it as more valuable than identical furniture built by someone else. They named it the IKEA Effect. The lesson was simple and a little heartbreaking. We don't just love things. We love the parts of ourselves we poured into them. Now picture every hour spent trying to save that first car instead of replacing it. A teenager lying underneath the frame at midnight, flashlight in their teeth, refusing to give up on an engine everyone said was already dead. A young couple skipping a vacation so they could afford one more repair because the car had been there before the marriage even started. A parent, years later, quietly fixing the same door handle their own child once slammed 100 times as a teenager, unable to explain why it mattered so much to keep it working. Every repair becomes a message the heart sends to itself. I am not ready to lose this yet. But underneath all of this sits something even more fragile. Psychologists call it self-continuity, the deep human need to feel like the same person across time, even as everything else changes. Bodies age, cities change, friends drift away. Even the person's own face in the mirror looks less familiar with each passing year. But that old car in the garage never changed. It is still exactly the way it was the day everything felt possible. Sitting inside it, even just for a moment, can feel like reaching back and touching the hand of who you used to be. Selling it doesn't just mean losing a car. It can feel, somewhere deep and wordless, like losing the last proof that the past really happened. Here is the part that makes this so universal and so quietly beautiful. It does not matter if the car is a 1974 muscle car with a rebuilt engine or a 2016 hatchback with 190,000 miles on it. It does not matter if the person behind the wheel is 78 years old or 23. Underneath the paint and the mileage, the exact same ache is running. An elderly man standing in his backyard, hand resting on a rusted truck bed, is protecting the same fragile thread of identity as a 22-year-old, refusing to sell a beat-up Corolla with a cracked windshield. A mother who just can't part with the old minivan that carried 3 kids through a decade of soccer practices is feeling the exact same pull her own mother felt a generation before her. This is why the psychology of people who refuse to sell their first car was never really about cars at all. It's about the terrifying, beautiful truth that time moves forward, whether we're ready or not. And once in a while, we find one object stubborn enough to hold a version of us still, frozen safely in place, waiting. Cars are one of the only possessions we live inside of, cry inside of, and grow up inside of, all before we're even old enough to understand what's happening to us. No wonder the human mind refuses to file them away as ordinary property. So maybe that old car sitting quietly in the garage was never really about transportation. Maybe it was always a small, stubborn piece of time, refusing to disappear along with everything else. And maybe the bank account is wrong, and the heart, for once, is right to keep it. If you still have your first car, or you remember exactly how it felt the day you finally let it go, tell us that story below. Subscribe to Drive Psychology, because the things we drive carry more of us than we ever realize. Because your car says more about you than you think.